What if the first signs of memory loss aren't what you think? And what if the way you respond to them actually makes things worse? Picture this. You're sitting at the dinner table with someone you love. Mid-conversation, they pause, searching for a word they've said 1,000 times before. A few minutes later, they repeat the same question. Then later that week, they forget where they placed something simple. And suddenly, a thought creeps in. Is this the beginning of something serious? That moment, right there, is where fear starts to take over. But here's the truth most people don't hear. Not every memory slip is dementia. In fact, sometimes the way we react to those moments can actually reinforce the problem. I once spoke with a couple that perfectly illustrated this. The husband had been forgetting small things, names, details, conversations. Nothing dramatic, but enough to raise concern. His wife, trying to help, would constantly correct him. "Honey, you forgot again. You just said that. That's not right." And every time she did, he became more unsure, more hesitant, more dependent on her corrections. So I asked her to try something different. For 1 week, no corrections, no reminders. Just let him think, pause, and process on his own. When they came back, something surprising had happened. He was sharper, more confident, more articulate. It wasn't dementia, it was pressure, fatigue, stress. And that's where we need to start today. Because if you misunderstand early signs, you might react in a way that actually accelerates decline instead of preventing it. So let's break this down clearly. What is dementia, really? At its core, dementia is a progressive decline in cognitive function. But that definition alone doesn't capture what's really happening inside the brain. One of the most affected areas is the hippocampus, a structure responsible for forming new memories and helping you navigate the world around you. Think of the hippocampus as your brain's command center for memory and orientation. Every time you learn something new, remember a conversation, or find your way through a place, this region is actively working behind the scenes. Now imagine that system slowly losing efficiency. It's not like a light switch turning off. It's more like a dimmer, gradually lowering over time. At first, it's barely noticeable. You might take a little longer to recall a word. You might forget where you placed something, but then remember it later. These moments are easy to dismiss. And that's exactly why early signs are often overlooked, because they don't feel dramatic. They feel normal. That's why it's so important to understand the difference between occasional lapses and consistent patterns. Let's walk through what those patterns can look like, so you can recognize them early without jumping to the wrong conclusions. The first sign is difficulty organizing or planning. This isn't just forgetting something, it's struggling to structure tasks that used to feel automatic. Things like managing your day, following a sequence of steps, or even keeping track of multiple responsibilities can start to feel mentally exhausting. You may notice that tasks take longer, or that you lose track midway through. It's not about intelligence, it's about processing. The second sign is personality changes. This one is often noticed by others before the individual realizes it. Someone who was once patient may become easily frustrated. Someone social may begin withdrawing. Small inconveniences may trigger outsized reactions. But here's the nuance. This can also be caused by stress, poor sleep, or emotional overload. Which is why context matters just as much as the symptom itself. The third sign is unexpected, but incredibly important. Constipation. Because your gut and brain are deeply connected through what's known as the gut-brain axis. Your digestive system contains a vast network of nerves, and the bacteria in your gut play a direct role in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin. When your gut becomes imbalanced, your brain chemistry can shift. And over time, that can influence cognition, mood, and clarity. The fourth sign involves sensory changes. This might show up as a reduced sense of smell, changes in taste, hearing difficulties, or even subtle shifts in vision. These systems rely on precise neural signaling, And early disruptions can reflect deeper changes happening in the brain. Even appetite changes can be part of this pattern. The fifth sign is language difficulty. This can be one of the most frustrating experiences. You know exactly what you want to say, but the words don't come out right. You may pause mid-sentence, repeat yourself, or substitute incorrect words without realizing it. This reflects changes in how the brain retrieves and processes language, not just memory alone. And finally, the sixth sign is difficulty navigating. This isn't just about getting lost. It's about losing confidence in spatial awareness. Places that should feel familiar may suddenly feel confusing. New environments become harder to process. It's as if your internal map is becoming less reliable. Now here's the most important distinction. Experiencing one or two of these occasionally does not equal dementia. In fact, many everyday factors can mimic these exact symptoms. Lack of sleep can impair memory, focus, and mood. Blood sugar instability can affect clarity and energy. Chronic stress can disrupt attention, speech, and recall. So the goal isn't to panic. The goal is to observe patterns over time. Because early intervention isn't about labeling yourself or someone else. It's about identifying what's driving the changes and correcting it while it's still reversible. Which leads to the next critical question. What actually contributes to cognitive decline in the first place? And what can you do to change that trajectory? One of the most overlooked contributors is vitamin B1 deficiency, also known as thiamine. This nutrient plays a central role in how your brain produces energy. Every thought, every memory, every signal your brain sends requires fuel. And thiamine is essential for converting the food you eat into usable energy for your brain cells. And here's the problem. The more carbohydrates and sugar you consume, the more B1 your body needs. If you're constantly consuming refined carbs, your demand increases, but your intake often doesn't. Over time, this can affect brain function. So one of the simplest strategies is increasing B1 intake through whole food sources. Nutritional yeast is one of the best options. And reducing excess sugar and refined carbohydrates helps lower the demand in the first place. The second major factor is gut health. Your gut and brain are in constant communication. If your gut is inflamed, imbalanced, or lacking diversity, your brain will feel it. So instead of eating the same foods every day, you want variety. Different vegetables, different fibers, different nutrients. Each one feeds different beneficial bacteria. Fasting can also play a role here. It gives your digestive system time to reset and can help improve microbial diversity. The third factor is powerful. Sprouts, especially broccoli sprouts. These contain compounds that support brain health at a cellular level. They help reduce inflammation, support detox pathways, and provide highly concentrated nutrients. Adding them regularly is a simple but effective upgrade. The fourth factor is fuel. Your brain can run on two main energy sources, glucose or ketones. In many cases of cognitive decline, the brain struggles to use glucose efficiently. But ketones provide an alternative fuel. Cleaner, more efficient, more stable. This is where intermittent fasting and lower carbohydrate intake come in. They help your body produce ketones, giving your brain the energy it needs when glucose isn't working properly. Even simple additions like MCT oil can support this process. The fifth factor involves targeted support. Certain natural compounds have shown benefits for cognitive function. Things like plant extracts and medicinal mushrooms have been studied for their role in supporting brain health. They don't replace lifestyle changes, but they can complement them. The sixth factor is foundational nutrition. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA, are critical for brain structure and function. Vitamin D supports mood, inflammation, and overall neurological health. Zinc plays a role in communication between brain cells. Deficiencies in these areas can quietly impact cognitive performance. And the final factor is often the most overlooked. Lifestyle, sleep. If you're not sleeping well, your brain doesn't get a chance to repair. Stress. Chronic stress increases cortisol, which can damage brain tissue over time. Movement. Exercise increases blood flow, oxygen, and growth factors that support brain regeneration. When you combine all of this, you start to see the full picture. Cognitive decline isn't caused by one thing. It's the result of multiple systems gradually falling out of balance. But the opposite is also true. When you begin to restore those systems, you give your brain a chance to recover, adapt, and improve. And that's where the real opportunity is. Not waiting until symptoms become severe, but acting early, when change is still possible. So instead of asking, "Is this dementia?" ask a better question. What can I improve right now? Because the earlier you take action, the more control you have over the outcome. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.